I hear it all the time when our callers call up, and they'll always talk about the Jews in the media and all this stuff. And I always, one of the things that I think about is, why haven't you called up and accused all the Catholics that appear on here of being involved in some kind of a cabal? What is the difference here, in your opinion? You've no doubt have thought about it all your life.
Well, Catholics used to be accused of this, incidentally, all the time, and it was a big problem until John Kennedy was elected, or something of a problem until John Kennedy was elected president. And, of course, in previous wars, there have been accusations of dual loyalty with Germans, Japanese were interned here in the U.S. So it's not a new thing to take a look at a group, to find some ethnic or sort of connection with a different country abroad, and then distrust their loyalty to the United States. Now, in the case of the Jews, that has a much longer history in Europe and a much longer history in America, in Western thought and life, and I suppose it hasn't gone away.
What's your sense? Will the Israeli, I don't know what you want to call it, it's obviously there's a problem there with getting the kind of security that they want. Will it ever be solved, the relationship between the Israelis and the Arabs and the Palestinians?
Yeah, I think so. It may not be a perfect solution. They may not love, I don't think most Palestinians are going to love having Israel as a neighbor, but could they live together the way Ireland lives with the United Kingdom and indeed with Northern Ireland? And, yes, I think so.
Where did you meet your wife, and what does she do now?
Well, I met Susan at Harvard. She was a year or two years behind me, actually, and I met her through a mutual friend, a very good friend of mine who lived next door to her, which was extremely good luck, and almost providential, you might say. And so I met her at the end of her freshman year, actually, and we've known each other ever since, and got married after she graduated from Harvard. She was a classicist. She got a PhD in classics, taught at Brandeis, at Penn and at Brandeis. We moved to Washington. We had our second kid, we had our third kid. She gave up teaching and has raised our kids and is very active in a lot of the civic organizations in the schools. She's president of our synagogue right now, which is a very difficult job, but a very rewarding job. And it's a very nice synagogue. I don't want to say negative about it.
If you're at a dinner table with Gertrude Himmelfarb, your mother, Irving Kristol, your father, as Susan, your wife, you've got 4 PhDs sitting there.
No, my father has no advanced degree.
Oh, he does.
Right.
All right. But you still
he's
you have four intellectuals sitting there.
Right. I want to defend my father, though. He's proud of not having gotten a PhD.
Why? Why is he proud?
I don't know. He got out of the Army after World War II, and I guess he didn't want to bother going back to grad school. I think he has some story about how he signed up. He loved Dante, I guess, and wanted to learn Italian better and to study Dante, and he sort of went for a week and then decided that the academic life was not for him, and so he went to work, I think, at Commentary magazine shortly after that.
But are the conversations different than you'd have in a political group sitting around the table? I mean, what do you all talk about at dinner?
Mostly we talk about, these days, about our kids and some about sports and the NCAAs. And now, of course, we talk about ideas and intellectual matters. This is the common world we live in. People in business who will talk about what's going on in the businesses they care about. But I think it's not, some people say, what was it like to grow up with your parents? And I think they were conscious that some of their friends had created kind of intellectual hothouses for their kids, and it hadn't really been healthy for their kids. And so whether they were conscious of that or not, and I think they probably were, we had very normal lives. I went out every afternoon to Riverside Park and played baseball if it was spring or summer, and touch football if it was fall, and basketball if it was winter, and I played on the collegiate sports teams, and I wasn't very good, but I did my best. And we were sports fans, and we went to the movies, and we did all the normal things that kids do. So it was an intellectual home, and we weren't embarrassed about that, and I'm sure I learned things just by being around there that I wouldn't have learned otherwise, but it wasn't some kind of pressure to become an intellectual or to go into journalism or anything like that.
How old are your 3 kids, and what are they doing?
Our 3 kids are Rebecca, Ann, and Joe. I've got to get this right because in case they watch this, I'll be in trouble. Rebecca is 23. She graduated from Duke a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago, I guess now, is working in New York and is engaged to be married in a year to a very nice young man who's at NYU Law School. So right now she's looking for places to get married here in Washington, which is, so far as I can tell, a full-time job for both her and Susan. Ann is a junior at WashU in St. Louis and enjoying it very much, studying history. And Joe is a freshman at Harvard and enjoying it very much and studying politics.
Any of them going into your kind of work?
I don't know, but none evidently so. None wrote for the student newspapers. They were sort of politically active. They were interested in politics. and active in sort of intellectual efforts of various kinds, but not directly, I don't think.
So what's in your dream line for the rest of your life? What are things you haven't done you want to do?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've been very lucky, I think, in my life, both personally and professionally, but I have never really planned ahead much, and really things sort of happened. I was an academic, and then I was in Washington in government, and then I did this little political interlude, and then we started the magazine, and that's gone 10 years. That's the longest I've had any job, so I haven't really given it much thought. I guess I would like to try to write a book. I mean, I feel I've co-authored one book, but it was an okay book, but it was just the case for the war in Iraq. It wasn't an intellectually, sort of challenging book in a way that a broader book would be. I studied political philosophy. I've gone back and taught it a little bit in the last year, and I'd like to try to write a more serious book, if I could, somehow about America and neoconservatism and sort of these big questions. But so far, I keep thinking of that, and then I end up writing 800-word editorials for the Weekly Standard. So maybe I'm not really cut out to write a serious book. I don't know.
Of all the things you've written for the Weekly Standard, which one either caused the most stir or got the most feedback from?
I don't know. I honestly don't. I suppose some of the foreign policy pieces, I would say. Actually, though, I've gotten very nice responses. I very rarely, I'm not a good writer, I think, about personal things. I'm not good at capturing personalities the way so many of my colleagues are so terrific at doing, But I'd say the piece I wrote about my uncle recently, who passed away just a couple of months ago, Milton Himmelfarb, I thought it came out okay, and I was very pleased by some of the responses I got, people I'd never met, but to whom he had meant a lot. Some people he had never met, but he's nonetheless meant a lot to them because of his writing. I wrote very nice letters, so that moved me. And as I say, I'm not good at this kind of personal appreciation or memoir, but that piece, and I wrote a similar one about Pat Moynihan, which I got a couple of nice notes about, one from Pat's daughter. So in a funny way, I remember those pieces more than all the public policy pieces, I think.
You did a lot. You did some pieces in your Weekly Standard magazine about plagiarism. Some of the history. Right. I mean, what kind of impact those kind of stories have you had with the Weekly Standard?
We sort of ended up, there was a stretch there where we did one or two pieces on, we stumbled across one or two plagiarism stories, and then I guess people thought we were interested in plagiarism, so we started to get stuff over the counter across the transom, some of which was actually turned out to be true about other law professors and historians who had plagiarized. They had some impact, I think, though on the whole the Academy these days is not terribly serious about sort of prosecuting those offenses, so there's a bit of a slap on the wrist, and then people go about their careers.
What has the most impact, the magazine, the actual physical magazine, or the website? And what's the difference in the use of the two?
Yeah, well, that's a very good question, and lots of people are spending a lot of time trying to figure out that for the future. I don't know. They each have an impact, but a different impact. I guess Fred Barnes always said from the beginning of the magazine, print matters most. He was contrasting print not with the website, but with TV. And I remember people would come to him, and they would begin to get on TV some, and they'd be excited, and he would say, "That's great. You should do it. It's been great to me. I enjoy doing it. I respect it." But if you started as a print journalist, if that's really what you're good at, it's great to have the additional benefit of being able to be on TV, and they're not pros like you, obviously. But don't keep the print. If you're good at print, if that's what you like doing, keep that at the center of your professional life. And I think that was good advice for a lot of our writers, and a lot of them ended up doing fine on TV, David Brooks, for example, but I think because they were able to say things at more length and with more care, obviously, in print. I guess I sort of have that attitude about the website, too. The website's great, but it's derivative from the magazine. It's parasitic, in a way, on the magazine. Now, there are times when news is breaking so fast that you can do things on the website that you can't do in the weekly, but I don't think the website would have much impact if it were just, or as much impact, if it were just freestanding. If there weren't a good, solid magazine that has been coming out 48 times a year for 10 years and has built up something of a track record of being serious and reliable, I hope, and thought-provoking. So I think that's the core of it, the magazine.
When you get up in the morning, what's the first place you go for news?
Well, I'm so old-fashioned, I walk downstairs and get the newspapers from the driveway and look at the Washington Post first, and depending on whether it's a key part of the sports season, I look at either the sports section first or the first section first. But I go online when I get to the office, and I go to Real Clear Politics, which is a very good website that has a lot of the day's op-eds and a lot of articles from weekly magazines like the Weekly Standard. Very good way to catch up quickly on sort of opinion journalism.
Which columnist are you likely to read first when the column's available?
Charles Krauthammer.
Why?
He's a good friend, so I'm biased. I think he's the best columnist in America. I mean, no one else, I think, week to week is so crisp, so sharp, so interesting, at times unpredictable, and a lot of reporting in it. I mean, Charles reads a lot. He looks below the surface. You learn something from Charles's columns as well as getting a sharp and interesting opinion.
If you had to pick, you can pick one or more than one philosopher, and the book of that philosopher that you want on your shelf that you pick up from time to time at home, what is it?
Well, I guess I wrote my senior thesis at Harvard, so many years ago, on Tocqueville's Democracy in America, and I think his deep understanding of American democracy, his appreciation for it, his belief that it can and has to be improved, and a certain distance from it too, as well. I guess I've always found that very congenial. I don't know if I was influenced by Tocqueville or if I already was sort of susceptible to Tocqueville, but I think Tocqueville's Democracy in America, and now you can get that in an excellent translation by my teacher, Harvey Mansfield, and his wife, Delba Winthrop. So that's the best, with a very good introduction by Harvey and Delba. So it's the best of both worlds.
In the remaining less than a minute, would you like to predict who you think the Republican and Democrat will be in the 2008 presidential election?
No, but I guess I'll say this. It's the first presidential election in 56 years with neither an incumbent president running nor an incumbent vice president running to succeed the president, which means it's wide open in both parties. And I guess I really think it's wide open. The Republican side, many strong candidates. And on the Democratic side, I don't think Hillary Clinton has nearly as much of a lock on the nomination as others think. So I think it will be unlike almost any race in our political adulthood where we really have two multi-candidate competitive races going on simultaneously with lots of issues of war and peace, issues like immigration popping up. I mean, it really will be an interesting and unusual presidential year.
Thank you, Bill Kristol.
My pleasure, Brian.